wanted to talk about giving thanks every day, and that is the name of my message today, Giving Thanks Every Day. And I'm going to mostly read out of Philippians 1 through 7. I have two different readings here. Most people have like the NIV or something similar. And then I also read out of the Complete Jewish Bible. So I'm going to read it out of the Complete Jewish Bible, but in my notes I'm reading out of a different version. But I really like how it speaks to people, and I think it's a little bit more understandable in the Complete Jewish Bible. From Paul and Timothy, slaves of the Master Yeshua, Messiah. All God's people united with the Messiah Yeshua and living in Philippi, along with the congregation leaders and the grace to you and shalom from God our Father and the Lord Yeshua the Messiah. I thank my God every time I think of you. Whenever I pray for all of you, I always pray with joy, because we have shared in proclaiming the good news from the very first day until now. And I am sure of this, that the one who began a good work among you will keep it growing until it is completed on the day of the Messiah Yeshua. It is right for me to think this way about you all, because I have you on my heart. For whether I am in chains or defending and establishing the good news, you are all sharing with me this privileged work. I'm going to go ahead and read 8. God can testify how I long for all of you with the deep affection of Messiah Yeshua. So, this is often called the joy letter that Paul gave. And he repeatedly refers to joy or rejoicing. It is ironic that he wrote this while he was imprisoned in Rome, probably 62 CE. In this letter, he gives thanks for the generosity of the Philippian believers who supported him financially at various hours of need, and he gives details of his current situation. So, Paul and Timothy, as servants of Yeshua, had gone out and proclaimed the good news, and of course they had a lot of controversy. They were beaten, they had rocks thrown at them, they were placed in jail, all of these things because of their defending the gospel and trying to spread it to everyone so that they might know about Yeshua. So last month, this is going to be relevant later on, I was getting a dental procedure. And I have to tell you that I hate dental procedures. In the past, I have said shalom repetitively to get through a filling. Okay? Just to get through a filling. It's like I'm laying there with my eyes closed and I'm thinking, shalom, shalom, shalom. So, this other procedure I was getting, though, I knew it was going to take a while. I was booked for like 4 hours. Fortunately, I only took 2. And I was thinking of what else I could do to calm me, and so I'm laying there on that chair, and I remember that when you praise the Lord, you chase away your fears. So I began to raise up praises to Yeshua. You know, things he had done for me, things he had done for others that I knew, things I knew felt like he was going to do for me. And it was the whole time I'm laying there in that chair and he's working, I'm praising him. Just praising for this and praising for that. And I praise you for, whatever. And it was a wonderful exercise in remembering the incredible fashion Yeshua has blessed me in my life. But one of the strange things I noticed when I reviewed the list of praises was that there was nothing on it that was even remotely negative. Isn't it interesting how easy it is to be thankful for good things while we at best ignore the bad things? And that's what I want us to look at today. Some have called it an attitude of gratitude. I just want us to focus on the character of Thanksgiving. It is a wonderful testimony to that kind of faith that says we have a national holiday where once a year we focus all of our attention on God and His goodness and His graciousness to us, and we say, thank you, thank you, thank you. But do we really do that? As a nation, do we do that? For me, I think Thanksgiving is now less about the blessings of God for our forefathers and more about the meal on the table. We know the origin of Thanksgiving, the story of how our pilgrim fathers living in England under an oppressive king sought religious liberty, freedom of conscience, freedom to worship God according to the dictates of their own heart. They could not get it under that oppressive government, so they moved to Holland for a while. There they were just strangers in a land under a government that only gave them concessions to worship. But it was really not a government of freedom and equality and liberty. They had a dream of finding a new land where they could establish a government and a society where all people would be equal, where all could stand equal before God and worship Him according to the dictates of their heart. So they set sail across the harsh Atlantic. They made that journey in a little ship. Let me graphically portray this ship for you. The ship was 28 feet wide. It's about the width of this building we're in today. And it was 113 feet long, about the length of the building we're in today. That's a pretty small ship. And there were 120 people among them, and 12 of them children, and about 30 crew members. Think about that. You think one or two people living in an 800 square foot apartment is small. Those people were lucky to have a foot to themselves. It was 2 levels, the upper deck and the lower deck. However, was not a comfortable ride. For 13 weeks, they battled the storms, the waves, the dangers, the sickness, the hardship, and finally they landed on that Plymouth coast. On that rocky shore, they fell to their knees and they thanked God for bringing them to this wonderful land of promise. Yet it was a land that repulsed them with enemies, with unfriendly Indians who killed them. It was a land of hostile environment, of snow and storm and hunger. They built their little fortress, and during that winter, they literally starved to death. Before the winter was over, there were more crosses on the hillside than there were living people inside the barricade. But when spring came, these wonderful forefathers of ours plowed the soil and planted the seed and cultivated the crops and built a new life. When fall came, they brought in the harvest for their first year. They said, "Let us have a feast of thanksgiving to God, bringing our first fruits to Him to honor Him for His goodness." Now, ironically or not, we do not know the thoughts of the pilgrims because we weren't there. But this was also the time of Sukkot, September or late October. Now later, Thanksgiving was moved to November, late November. And even though the pilgrims were very religious and they were thanking God, it was not considered a religious holiday to them or a religious thing. But you have to understand, in most of our lives, we have non-religious things that we do, but we're still thanking God for them. At least those people of faith are. We, as an American people, with this history and tradition and foundation of faith in God, have this as a national holiday of Thanksgiving. But there are 364 days of the rest of the year. Thanksgiving is one day. What about the other days? What about perpetual Thanksgiving? That's what it ought to be. Every day should be a beautiful day. Every day is a good day when we understand it as the gift it is from God. If you think of Thanksgiving as something you should be doing every day, the attitude can change your life. We choose the kind of attitude we are going to have. Have you ever heard the United States Navy SEALs say, "The only good day was yesterday"? Now that sounds real negative, but they don't mean it in a negative way. They mean in order to excel, each day should be more challenging than the last, and that with continuous effort, yesterday's accomplishments will eventually seem easy in retrospect. Is that not how we should think about our trials and blessings? Amen. Think that through. I don't believe I could deal with any circumstances if I said that today is worse than yesterday, and I know that today is better than tomorrow will be. But I know a lot of people who believe yesterday was always the best and tomorrow is always going to be the worst. It's so negative. It's so, and I've heard it all my life. "Oh, would you look at that schedule?" I'm a nurse in surgery. "Would you look at that schedule? Look at it. We're just going to be eat up." Well, you know what? We only do one patient at a time. It's not like we got the entire schedule in our operating room all at one time with a bunch of people scurrying around. It's one patient at a time. So what makes it bad? That you're actually going to be busy all day? Well, you get paid by the hour. That's how I always looked at it. I get paid by the hour, so might as well be busy. Now remember, we choose our attitude in life. To do the same, we must look to some of the examples of people who lived life at this crest of the hill all the time. The people who lived with an attitude of thanksgiving in good times and bad times, in all the yesterdays and tomorrows, in all kinds of circumstances. And so I have chosen the Apostle Paul to talk about today. The Apostle Paul's life was characterized by perpetual thanksgiving. He understood that thanksgiving was an attitude that conditioned everything that happened to him. As a result, he could say again and again and again, "I am so thankful." He thanked God through his epistles. Writing to the Christians at Rome, he said, "I thank God through Jesus Christ for you all, for all the circumstances related to my life, as I am trying to come and visit you. I thank God." Paul had not even seen the people in Rome when he wrote this, but he was thanking God for them and for their prayers. And then he wrote to the church of Corinth, where he had established a church and suffered all kinds of difficulties and misunderstandings. The church was filled with trouble of all kind. I've been through churches like that, and it's heartbreaking. But he writes, "I thank my God always on your behalf. I thank God for you all." I could easily imagine him thinking, "You are a sorry bunch of people down there, and you cause me all kinds of heartache. But I thank God for you. You are great people." See, that's how you have to think of people. Yes, we're all messed up, but I think that you're in my life. I may complain about you in my head, but I'm glad you're here.
We see it in your eyes.
He continued to say, "I thank God who enables us to walk triumphantly through all the circumstances of life." Listen carefully. He thanks God. He is correct to do so. God is the one who enables me to be victorious, always in everything that challenges me in my life. I do get down sometimes, but it's like, eventually I'm like, well, you know what? It could be worse. So I thank God that it's not worse. I thank God that let me think out how, Lord, help me to make this better. What can I do to make this better? How can you help me to make this better? And he always comes through. I've never had him not come through with me asking him what I should do. Then Paul writes to the little church at Ephesus, giving thanks always for all things. He writes to Timothy, his son in the ministry, I thank the God whom I serve and you serve. I thank God for our calling as a minister of the gospel. I read to you his Thanksgiving passage to the church of Philippi. I read that to you. And that gives us a key. In these words, he gives us the secret of the thankful life, perpetual thanksgiving, and the attitude of thanksgiving. And he tells us it is the key in 3 ways. Paul says, I thank God for the fellowship we had. And he describes 3 areas in which they had fellowship. Paul focuses on their fellowship together. He is reminding them that they are all in this life together. And aren't we? As believers, are we not all in this life together? We have fellowship with one another that rises up in this attitude of thanksgiving. This provides the clear focus for us today. First, Paul thanks God for the fellowship of imprisonment. Now, that may sound crazy because I'm telling you. He was literally in a hole in the ground. And they basically there were no stairs. They just dropped you in the hole. And he was also in chains when they dropped him in that hole. And they would just throw food down there like he was a dog in a hole. Just throw food down there at him. Paul is writing from the Maritime prison in Rome. If you go to Rome today, you can see the excavations of the Roman Forum and all the public buildings. Then over to the side, another area has been excavated, and you can see Maritime prison where political prisoners were kept. You can go down into that dungeon about 10 feet below the ground, carved out of solid rock. There were no steps when Paul was there. They have cut steps into the rock now, and so that you can go down there. In Paul's day, it was just a big hole carved from the rock, with an opening at the top where they dropped the prisoners into the hole and then pitched food down at them. I mean, I'm telling you, it was the worst. And I don't know if you've ever been in a cave. Caves are cold. And they're damp. And there's usually a lot of mold and mildew and other things down there. They're just icky. And not only was he in that hole, he had chains on him. These aren't these modern chains that you can go down to Lowe's and buy, and they're all kind of lightweight. These were heavy chains made out of iron. Can you imagine Paul as he dictates this letter, perhaps pacing the small area, chains rattling, and thinking of the fellowship he has with the saints that he had with the saints in Philippi? It's not even physical because he's never been there. It's spiritual. Paul is going to be executed soon. And it won't be an easy execution. It's not humanitarian as we have some states do it now. He will have his head cut off to entertain people. It was a form of entertainment. I always tell people at work when they want to go see something really gross that a doctor's having to do, you can't unsee that. You really don't want to see it. Yet these people live for that. Paul reminds us that we all wear chains. We have a fellowship of suffering together. Hardship comes to all of us in life. Pain and suffering comes to everybody. It is the common denominator of life. Death is going to come and break every family circle sooner or later. You will not escape. We have fellowship in this. People are going to disappoint us and break our hearts. It comes to all of us, and we have fellowship in this. People are going to berate us and say ugly things about us, and we have fellowship in this. Paul says elsewhere that we had the fellowship of suffering even as Yeshua suffered on the cross. And he shares in our suffering. This is a reason we may find joy and victory in our suffering. We're not alone. Not only do we have Yeshua with us, we have each other. So, can you thank God even in chains? Because, every day is a good day and a beautiful day. He is working all of our pain to our good. Now, in Washington, D.C., there is a museum dedicated to the memory of the millions of Jews who were killed by the Nazis in World War II. In it, you can see the horrible pictures and read the accounts of the ghettos and the concentration camps. But in the midst of all the dark tales of suffering, there is one amazing story of how God can transform horror into hope. In one of the German concentration camps, there was a young lady named Rachel, and she endured great hardship from being made to work in the snow with inadequate clothing. She watched in horror as many of her friends and family members were killed. Then one day, the guards left unexpectedly. They just walked off. She didn't know the war was over. They didn't tell them. Later that day, some American soldiers arrived to the prison camp to free the prisoners. One young American soldier told Rachel he had come to rescue her and for her to get her possessions together. Then he held the door for her and said, "After you, ma'am." Rachel started to cry. He asked, "What's wrong, ma'am?" And she said, "I can't remember the last time someone held a door open for me. It is the nicest thing anyone has done for me in a long time." All he did was hold the door open for her. Well, that soldier stayed in touch with Rachel. And after she was relocated and they became friends, they fell in love and they were married. That is what God can do. He can take the most terrible situation imaginable and make something beautiful out of it, because our God is in control. So whenever you go through tough times, you can either look for the junk or you can look for the joy. And that is what Paul is talking about when he mentions the fellowship of chains. It is a fellowship of suffering that we have all had together. Let us all give thanks to God who gives us a victory to be triumphant over the circumstances of life. Second, Paul thanks God for the fellowship of the gospel. He says, "It is right for me to feel this way about you, all of you, because I hold you in my heart, for you are all partakers with me of grace, both in my imprisonment and in the defense and confirmation of the gospel." That's Philippians 1:7 out of the ESV. In one particular wintry fall, I like my stories. I'm sorry if you don't like them. In one particular wintry fall, a young woman named Linda was traveling alone up the rutted and rugged highway from Alberta to the Yukon. Linda didn't know you don't travel white horse alone in a run-down Honda Civic. So she set off where only four-wheel drives normally venture. The first evening, she found a room in the mountains near a summit and asked for a 5 a.m. wake-up call so she could get an early start. She could not understand why the clerk looked surprised at the request, but as she woke to an early morning, she found that there was nothing but fog outside. It was because she was on top of a mountain. Then she understood. Not wanting to look foolish, because we've all gone through that, she got up and went ahead to breakfast. And two truckers invited Linda to join them, and since the place was so small, she felt obliged. "Where are you headed?" one of the truckers asked. "White Horse." "In that little Civic?" "No way. This pass is dangerous in weather like this." And she said, "Well, I'm determined to try." How many times have we packed ourselves up in a run-down Honda Civic, metaphorically speaking, and tried to go somewhere that everyone in your life told you could not go? Well, Linda was gutsy, if not informed. And she said, "Well, I guess I'm going to try." And they responded to her, "Then I guess we're just going to have to hug you." And Linda drew back and she said, "Well, there's no way I'm going to let you touch me." And they were like, "Oh, no, not like that. We'll put one truck in front of you and one in the rear. That way we'll get you through the mountains." So, on that foggy morning, Linda followed the 2 red dots of the tail lights in front of her and had the reassurance of a big escort behind as they made their way safely through the mountains. Caught in the fog in our dangerous passage through life, we need to be hugged with fellow Christians who know the way and can safely lead us to where we need to be. You know, you have people who help you in this walk all the time. You need the person in front of you. You need the person behind you that's encouraging you. So Paul says that this is why I can be thankful all the time. He is thankful for the fellowship that they have together in the gospel. And all of us can be thankful for our fellowship in our church. And we should remind ourselves how blessed we are to have people around us who will hug us through this journey ahead. Third, Paul thanks God for the fellowship of grace. One of the incredible truths about community of faith is that we have all experienced grace. I'm afraid many of us are guilty of judging people based on what how they appear on the surface. And you forget that it is easy to forget that the real evidence of fellowship is not what we see on the outside of a person, but what abides in their heart. It is the core of grace working within us to do the good will of our Father that makes us all brothers and sisters. The lady in a faded gingham dress and her husband she was dressed in homespun. He was in a threadbare suit, and they stepped off the train in Boston and walked timidly without an appointment into the president of the Harvard's outer office. I don't know if you've ever been to Harvard. It's not a spectacular place. It's not like there's bells and whistles going off when you walk down the street and go by the buildings. They're just a bunch of brick buildings. I've been there. I've seen it. I was very underwhelmed. But they walked into the president's building, and they wanted to see the president. And the secretary said he's going to be busy all day, and they said, we'll wait. So they waited many hours, and the secretary kept looking at him and kept thinking, I wish they'd go away. But they didn't. They stayed. So finally the secretary went, and he got the president of Harvard and said, look, if you'll just see these people for like a couple of minutes, they'll go away and we can get them out of the office. So the president, stern-faced with dignity, strutted towards the couple, and then, what are you doing here? What do you want? Have you ever had anybody say that to you? What do you want? Like somehow you're beneath them? It's very intimidating to have someone tell you that. It kind of makes my hackles rise, and I tend to just tell them exactly what it is, why I'm there. But you know, I just feel like that's the kind of people you just can't back down from. Their attitude is not correct. So someone of this guy's importance, he obviously didn't have the time to spend with them, but he asked them what they wanted, and they said, oh, we had a son who attended Harvard for 1 year, and he loved Harvard, and he was happy here. But about a year ago, he was accidentally killed. My husband and I would like to erect a memorial to him somewhere on the campus. The president wasn't touched. He was shocked. Madam, he said gruffly, we can't put up a statue for every person who attended Harvard and died. If we did this, the place would look like a cemetery. Oh, no, the lady said, we don't want to erect a statue. We thought we'd give a building to Harvard. The president rolled his eyes. How many times have you I know I've done it, inwardly rolled your eyes over something somebody said to you because you just thought it was ridiculous? A building, do you have any idea how much a building costs? We have over $7.5 million in the physical property at Harvard. Well, you know, that was a long time ago, so that would be like $1 billion. For a moment, the lady was silent, and the president was pleased. He could get rid of them now. The lady turned to her husband and said quietly, is that all it costs to start a university? Why don't we just start our own? And the husband nodded. The president's face wilted in confusion and bewilderment. Mr. and Mrs. Leland Stanford walked away, traveling to Palo Alto, California, where they established a university that bears their name, a memorial to a son that Harvard no longer cared about. Stanford University. You can easily judge the character of others by how they treat those who can do nothing for them or to them. So, come on, y'all. It's all about the Spirit. It's not about what this looks like. It's about the spirit of the person that you're talking to. But that man, that president, not only did he miss out on a lot of money given to Harvard, what do you think, if he was a religious man, what do you think Yeshua's gonna say to him when he's standing before him? You remember those people? Yeah, I was standing next to him while they were talking to you, and you kind of blew it. What do you have to say about that? I don't want to be asked that question ever. Now we have come to the end of this message, but the beginning of the challenge. Will you put Thanksgiving in your Thanksgiving? Will you put Thanksgiving in your everyday life? Thank you.